Hello.
Oh, hi.
Juicy.
Oh, hi. Hi.
Oh, hi.
Hi. How are you?
Hi. I am very well. And how are you, Miss Rosen?
Loaded question. Next.
Thank you. Next.
Thank you. Next.
Like a baked potato.
Yeah. Oh my God. What am I doing here? I'm like, my hair is a mess and I've got so much gear on. I've got the headphones, the glasses, the toque.
You
Like,
just got to sell it as a whole bundle, like the Rachel Rosen bundle. Like, you want to be Rachel Rosen for a day? Buy all of this and you can be just like her.
it's the package. It's the full meal deal, guys. Right here. Right here, right now. Right. Okay. Is that a wrestling thing? No, oh God, okay, you're gonna break the eardrums of everyone listening. Welcome to Getting Juicy on that note.
I'm Hero Prince.
I'm Rachel Rosen, and the reason why I asked you about that is because I swear there was this, like, I don't even watch wrestling, but there was this move a long time ago, maybe before you were born. No, I'm just kidding. And the guy would go like, he made an X and he'd go like, "Hood," like that or something like that. Like, it was like a, yeah, come on, baby. Like, I don't know.
Perfect way to start the show. I love it.
Something like that. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Drop me, baby, one more time.
Exactly. Drop it like it's hot.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, wow. Wow. Wow.
What
wow,
a day.
Wow. 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 Yeah. I know. It's basically, I think the world is tired.
Yep. So tired.
So tired. Just tired, you know, at this point, just fatigued, very fatigued.
Very, very fatigued.
Fatigued. That's yes. Yes. Speaking of fatigued, we do have our guest today. It's okay that we say he's gay and he's a comedian.
Yes.
And I didn't realize that until today. And the reason why, I mean, like, who cares if he's gay, whatever.
Right.
But just because he talks about it in his act.
Yes.
One of the act that I did see when he was on Conan like a while ago, and talking about Tinder. And at the time, which was funny, at that time, because I think it was about 9 years ago, he asked the audience like something about Tinder, and it was like one person was like, "Woo! No, it wasn't Tinder. Sorry, Grinder. Excuse me,
Grinder."
Grinder." And he's like, "Do you like? Come on, you don't know what Grinder, or like, do you know what that is?" One person. Now it'd be like
everybody.
You know, everybody knows what that is, but
everybody. But what I love about Grinder is that people call Tinder like this, like Grinder for straight people, and I'm like, you wish. Not even close. Oh.
Keep talking.
I never would have known.
I just can't hear you.
I never would have known. And honestly, like, Grinder is such a meat market.
And hopefully you're saying nice things about me. Yeah, of course. I'm wearing so much gear, guys, that I just like knocked out my the plug to my headphones, and I couldn't hear what you're saying. Anyway.
But Trevor Boris, really, we'll let Trevor introduce himself more fully, but just a couple little notes or accolades about Trevor. Born in Winnipeg, little farm boy from Winnipeg, just found that out literally before hopping on, and lives in Toronto, known for being, again, gay Canadian stand-up comedian, has performed in many comedy festivals across Canada, for sure. He's also done a lot of self-writing and production work, especially in Canadian media and television, and most notably known currently as the executive producer and showrunner for Canada's Drag Race.
Woo!
Yeah, as well as being a producer and big part behind Big Brother Canada, Canada's Got Talent, and also where I started watching Trevor as a teenager in 2010, was Video on Trial on Much TV, Much Music, which essentially is a team of stand-up comedians that will commentate and give their unapologetic interpretation on cringeworthy music videos.
Yeah. Oh my God, this toque is too hot. This is stupid.
That is all good. You look radiant.
My hair is awful, but
no, like, it's not awful. You look radiant.
Sweating. I don't care.
You're
anyway, doesn't matter. So anyway,
yes,
wow, that's a lot. That is a lot.
It's a lot. And so go on.
No, I was going to say there's a lot of those things I had no idea about, and I also didn't even realize that there was a Big Brother Canada.
Yeah, for 7 or 8 years, I believe now,
Holy
about 8 seasons.
cow. Okay.
It's one of the better established Canadian franchises for reality shows, next to The Amazing Race Canada and now Canada's Drag Race. I would say Big Brother Canada and Amazing Race Canada are probably two of the better franchises that have stayed on longer and that have been consistent, as opposed to being cut or modified, or like Dance Canada or MasterChef Canada or Top Chef Canada. Like, they are still around, but well, not Dance, but Top Chef and MasterChef are still around. And, but
yeah, and I want to know, like, how do you get into something like that? Because obviously he's got a niche, and the niche is reality TV. I guess, like, once you kind of get into there, it's like, people tend to know each other, and there's probably a lot of the same type of people perhaps working in production on these similar style of shows with reality TV in Canada, I'm guessing. But
yeah, you never know. And it's interesting as you're saying that too, because as I start to think about my career direction in the industry and getting more into media entertainment, getting more into broadcasting and things in that way, these are really influential people that I look up to, that I admire for their accommodations. I guess sure, why not? But accomplishments is what I was meaning to say.
Or accolades,
accomplishments, successes. And we all start from somewhere to get somewhere, for sure. I look at our humble podcast as a starting pad for both of us to be part of different spaces, different places that are around creative thinkers and people that are visionaries for whatever creative work is being put out there. And Canadian media has such a place in my heart, I would say, even though I may not consume all of it. The parts that I do consume really bring a lot of fulfillment and daily pleasure, weekly pleasure to life. And reality TV, of course, is something that is it's never going away. It's only going to continue to evolve, like every TV genre.
I know, it's true. Especially people just craving that quote unquote real vibe from just whatever the fuck is going on with the world right now. And just everybody is clamoring to kind of, be a part of social media and live type things, as well as just being more real and true and all that kind of stuff. Now so you said he's a writer too.
Yes. So in terms of like Video on Trial, for example, he wrote an entire season for the show.
Wow. Because I do kind of, gosh. And so for those of you that don't know what Much Music is, it's kind of like, it's the Canadian equivalent, I guess, to MTV, or it was.
Right.
That in makes a sense. Yeah. I mean, although Much Music might not have had as many television shows and produced television shows as MTV did back in the day, but I mean, both those platforms have changed like crazy. I don't even know, is Much Music even around anymore?
I think it is. I think it is.
I've seen their Instagram is current, but I have no idea what they're doing now. And
yeah, that's true. But no, you're right though. And also I haven't done much research on this, but another, like, I think Much Music is also part of the Chum group or Chum Media. I don't know if that still is the case, but back in the day, I know Chum was the group, CHUM.
And did I just ask if MTV was still around?
No, yes, if
Much Music. Okay, good. Because I'm like,
around.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I remember. For sure. Oh, I remember, because I was such a huge fan. I know we're kind of getting off topic a little bit from what Trevor does, but I just remember as a kid, even as a teenager, and if I was in Toronto, and because I was such a music fan, and I love Much Music, and I loved watching music videos, that if I could walk by the Chum City Music, the building,
and they would be recording live, right? Live recording.
And somebody would, right?
And they had the crowd outside.
I never caught that. I wish I did, but I never did. But I just remember like, I think I might have gotten a t-shirt from their store in there, but I would like look in the window and just thought it was so cool. But
yeah, for sure. So, and what we really focus on, again, what we're trying to focus on, if we can, is Canadian success stories, Canadian people that are in the communities of LGBTQ plus, and therefore other, I don't like saying the term marginalized, but I don't look at it as a negative term, but marginalized communities that are maybe less prominent or maybe not as dominantly amplified or voiced, That's a
good way of putting it. Yeah.
And so there are people that are everywhere, including, of course, we look at like Ryan Reynolds or now Simu Liu. We think of these big names, Seth Rogen, just to name
I had
a few.
a dream about last night.
Oh, now you got to dive into that in the
I
next
don't even
minute.
remember. I don't even remember what it was about exactly, but Seth Rogen was very much in my dream.
Was he making you
And
pottery and like swooning you with his
no,
famous pottery skills?
no, but I was
Oh,
definitely no. It was at some sort of big party, and I think his writing partner and producing partner Evan Goldberg was there, but I don't really know what Evan looks like.
right.
Although I met him many years ago at a party in Vancouver. But anyway, that's
Oh,
besides the point. I seriously don't remember. I can't give you juicy details, but it was just like one of those triggers, like, oh my God, why was he in my dream last night? But he was.
amazing.
But what's cool about Trevor, we're jumping all over the place, but still Canadians, is that it's the first time we're talking to someone who's really truly behind the scenes working on these shows, where we've had, quite a few guests now who are the contestants or the alumni of these shows, these reality TV shows, whether it be chefs, whether it be drag queens, anyone else? Not yet. Survivor guests, perhaps.
Survivor guests, perhaps, and also I
didn't say that.
Okay. Yeah. But also,
I did,
but whatever. I mean, again, that can mean anything, though. I mean, the amount of people that are on such a show. Yeah. But no, for sure. I know it's interesting. Like, I keep thinking about people to bring into the podcast, conversations to have, subjects to have. And what I think is really fascinating about reality show people is that they are real people,
Of course.
On some of these shows, you do get them from casting agencies. They're moving away from that, but there are some people that have been casted from being part of a modeling or an acting agency, and they have a platform and they get casted. But for the most part, reality TV people are real people that are just like everyone else, and that's what makes it relatable.
Yeah,
really relatable. They're just
absolutely
people that got an opportunity to broadcast or show their story or their craft, and then some people get a lot of notoriety, a lot of people move on, and then some people don't.
But there's still like a show vibe to it, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is actually good, because you still need I think people still need to decipher between real life and still they're on the camera. They're in front of, there's a camera that's shooting them. It's not like, okay, yeah, it's reality, but you know what I mean? Like, so that I think is a really important thing to decipher between the two. And got Trevor connecting to his audio and his visual. Oh,
surprise.
I know. It's like tease ya. Nope. Bye.
The old double tap. How's it going?
Not too bad. How are you doing? Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no, happy to be here.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
So we gave a little introduction about you. I'm Hero. Nice to meet you visually and verbally as well.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Rachel as well, of course.
Rachel,
I'll let you introduce
hello.
yourself. Yeah.
I'm Rachel.
Hero and Rachel, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so we did a little bit of an introduction about you, personal connection to from myself, and also what I could learn about you from just doing a little bit of research, Rachel as well. So we are recording as you are coming on, but we would always love for our guests to introduce themselves, anything that they want our listeners and your viewers to know right off the bat. If you want to give a little shout out, feel welcome to.
Sure. Hey, so I'm Trevor Boris, and oh my goodness, introduce myself?
I know, right? Wait, put you on the spot.
Yes, Queen.
Is that supposed to be your job?
We introduced you, but there might be things that we might not know about yet.
But I love it's like we did, but you have no freaking clue what we said about you. You'll find out after.
It's like it depends on what you said about me, I guess. If it's about my age, Wikipedia is wrong. I'm way younger.
Oh, hells yeah! Of course not. You cannot go by what someone else enters about you.
I'm not good at age, except for the fact that you might have aged yourself, because we were talking about Much Music and a bunch of stuff that was back in the day, and I'm like, I remember that, but Hero might have been in the womb still, perhaps. But anyway,
I know those are the moments that make me feel old, when people will say, "Oh, I used to watch you when I was young."
Yeah,
when I was a kid. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's like, okay, great. All right, now move along, scram.
Okay, yeah. but Trevor, you might have walked into that because on your Instagram there is a 9-year-old video of you on Conan O'Brien. So that might have aged you.
Has it been that long? Oh my God, time flies. That is wild.
Completely. I mean, so like in terms of us like introducing you and getting to know you and stuff, we kind of did a little deep dive. Just we know you grew up in Winnipeg, I believe, or in Manitoba, farm boy, raised from there. At some point, moving to Toronto at some point in the journey. And of course, just speaking about your accolades and what you are doing right now, where you came from to get to where you are right now in the production realm. And I'm sure just based on seeing our podcast with our guests that are comfortable and open and transparent to chat about kind of behind what they do, in meaning who they are as the human, we love to kind of get that full 360, you know, to learn how they are and like, what was it like them growing up? How did they end up to where they were? What were their first inspirations to even think about where they landed, and now what they're doing now and the impacts they're having in their society, you know? So we can go in any direction that the three of us wish to go in. It's no set script.
And successful Canadians, because it's really awesome to put spotlights on Canadians that are creating content, that are out there doing some pretty awesome stuff. So
yeah, no, that's great, because there really aren't, like, you know, probably as many places to like for Canadian entertainers and that there even used to be, like, even with like much music like not being around, you know, as much as like it used to be. So
yeah,
it's great. Well, I can't promise you I'm going to be as entertaining as you might think I will be, but
that is fine. We want you to be you.
You're on the stage though. Like, do you still do? So let's have a starting point here. So with that link I saw on your Instagram, being on Conan, I'm a huge Conan O'Brien fan. I mean, who isn't? But
yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah, but we'll start there, because it seems like, is that something with stand-up comedy and writing? Was that something that kind of came first before the production side or the producer side of things, and what you're doing right now in reality TV?
Yeah, like stand-up's where I got my start. Like, that's really,
cool.
You know, I started doing stand-up when I was like 19, back in Winnipeg. And which even kind of, you know, people will always be like, how did you get into that? And I don't even really know. Like, it's not something I grew up like wanting to do, or like, I was a fan of comedy and I guess I would watch Saturday Night Live and stuff, but it was not something that I was like, and I certainly was not funny, you know, up till university. I was like the shyest. Like, when I started doing video on trial, people from high school were literally shocked that was the same person. Like, I was super shy and awkward, you know, just like not the person that people may think I am now. But but I went with a friend to like some amateur open mic night, and you know, it was like 9 of us there, and it was pretty terrible. And I remember being like, oh, I could be better than that. And then she just kind of dared me, and so we went back like a week later, and I did 5 minutes, and it was like fine. And then it was kind of something that we enjoyed. So me and my friend, we just like kind of went every week, and I was doing it just kind of for fun. And then I kind of just like stumbled into it. Like, it just like kind of went good enough that I started doing a little more. And back then it was like, I was really young. I was like 19, but I looked like 13. So there was kind of this like novelty, because I was like, you know, like this almost like feeling like this little kid doing it. And then it kind of just like, I basically within a month even kind of like met these 3 other people that became really good friends of mine that they were doing stand-up as well. And they opened a couple other rooms. And so it was really just like a hobby for actually even a couple years, that then just like, and then the big turn was, I don't know if you know Nikki Payne. She was also from Video on Trial, like really amazing, like really, you know, back in the day, she was like, yeah, Nikki Payne, she like, you know, had a lisp. Really high energy, like really funny.
Right.
You know her from Video on Trial, probably, like from the early days.
That's right.
She was someone who I like, her stand-up was like, she was like a force in comedy in Canada. And she like came through Winnipeg, because that was my only access to comedy, was at the one comedy club in Winnipeg that I would perform at. So she came in, and she was a headliner, and I got to open for her, and we just like really hit it off and became besties. And then she took me out to like Thunder Bay for a show. And then she was like, you know, you should come visit in Toronto and like do some shows. And I just like never crossed my mind. I've been doing it for a couple of years, but like literally never crossed my mind to do that, or like to think of it as a career. And then it came out here and opened for her a little bit and did a few shows at like Yuk Yuk's. And then like Mark Breslin, who's like the owner of Yuk Yuk's, saw me and was like, oh, like I had a really good show. And he was like, oh, so you're like moving here, right? And I was like, yeah, no, I'm moving here right away. And then I kind of I was like, he was like, yeah, because I'll get you work. And then I did. And then, because I don't know, I look back now and it seems so silly, because I don't know, like I didn't really know what I was doing. So I just moved here, and then within 3 months I got Video on Trial, and then that was kind of really it. So
Holy cow.
Wow.
So that I lucked out on as well. Like that kind of just how that came about. I don't even know either. Like there's this like the legend has it someone had kind of mentioned my name, and then because I was on from the very, very beginning, like
Okay.
episode 2, like before anything aired. And they actually asked if I would audition for this show. And I was like, of course, like growing up in Canada, Much Music is like the greatest thing of all time. And even though I didn't think I'd want to be a comic, like everyone wants to be a VJ, you know, like you all want to be like Rick the Temp was so cool back then, and like George Strombo. So I was like, yeah, of course I want to audition. And then it just kind of was like, I think whatever changed on their end, I just came down and they were like, oh, you know, we're just going to shoot the episode. Like I didn't have to audition.
Oh, wow.
And it went well. So I was on episode 2, and then, so I'm just giving you this whole, like, these stories are kind of just blending together.
Yeah, it's great. It's how we roll.
So I did episode 2, and then kind of a part of some of those early episodes. And so we're like two of like some of my dearest best friends still, Deborah DiGiovanni and Sabrina Jalise, who are I you know love to death. And we were all kind of in those early episodes, and then it just like we kind of did the whole run. Like I did all 9 years and like 100 episodes, and you know.
Oh my God. I'm having all these like funny little like childhood flashbacks now to that. I mean, it's been so long since I've heard those words like video on trial, or even like Rick the Temp or Sookie and Lee, like, you know, some of those.
I know. Even like last night I was talking about some of them, like Leah Miller and Matt Babel and Tim Deegan, and you know, that to me was really what was so like, I mean, it really was a dream. And it's funny because for like the first bunch of years, you know, it's kind of really what I was known for, but it was like the smallest part of my life. Like I would go in and film once a week or once every couple of weeks for like an hour. And it was really mostly a comic. And but then there was a point where after a few years I started producing it. That's kind of where I crossed the line. So I started producing the show, which is why there was lots of me, because I was booking the comedians. So I was just booking myself. And then so I got to be there full time, and that was like kind of the coolest year of my life. Like it was like, you know, mid-20s, and I had a desk like at Queen and John, like right on that corner, like at the window, and people would just come and like
that was probably
like a polar bear at the zoo.
Yeah. We were talking about that before you hopped on. I remember like, because I'm from Vancouver, and like desperately wanting to go to Toronto back in the day just so I can go to the building and just even look through the window and buy a t-shirt. Like that's all I cared about.
I know, right? So it was like that year, like it was like maybe a year or two that I was kind of there full time, and it just like was the coolest, like, you know, when you're like at that age. And you know, I remember like, you know, Much on Demand, because like Much on Demand, and that was filmed like 10 feet from my desk. I remember like, you know, like Lady Gaga was there. It was her first ever thing. Like no one knew her. Just Dance had just come out, and she was like fumbling with cables, and like she like asked for my help to like her goggles weren't working or something, and you're like, I'd never heard of her, and it's like, okay. All right, you know, I'm busy here. Can you leave me alone? And it's like Lady Gaga, you know.
Oh my gosh!
Wow.
So it's just kind of like a funny, like, and you just, you know, you kind of, I guess, maybe took it for granted, but you look back now and you're like, oh my God, that was pretty cool. And it was like there was such an electricity too, because there was always like live stuff like that doesn't really happen now. Like there's just like live shows, and I would go and do like live hits on the street, so it was like such a cool kind of time, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing about how our generations have come, even in a short, like 10 years, 12 years time, and how technology, how media, especially with the pandemic, just based on how much adaptations have come. And then the access of, you know, streaming services online or on paid subscription channels, and that whole idea of television, radio, broadcast media, it's changing so rapidly, which some industries are changing all the time. But that is something that is really kind of profound in some ways, because you're speaking of video on trial, and I know I shared this little anecdote with you, but again, watching you on video on trial, like lunch break in the freaking Jewish Community Center in Vancouver across from my high school, just what kind of a memory is that? And to think like, you know, that was my half an hour, like to run across and be like, escape from whatever I was dealing with, and be like, okay, I'm going to see these folks on this show, gonna bond with my friends about it, and eat, you know, kosher grilled cheese sandwiches or whatever the fuck we ate back then. And just have a great time, right? So it's what I find poignant is that there are these figures in your life, whether if you're, forget about age, figures that you look up to that you think, you know, I wonder what they're up to, what are they doing, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing now and what you have done. I mean, it's pretty remarkable to think about how you got to where you are today. And still, I think in Canada, we have a true humility, I would say, a true sense of like, yeah, we are real people, but we know we're real people. We don't necessarily let our successes or our public image get to the point where we are so inflated and we kind of lose from. And
Well, I
think
feel like that's
good at that.
inherent in the, like in Canada, it's like you're never allowed to get a big head really, because
No.
there's, which I think is a good thing. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like, I know I've been very lucky in that I've just kind of been able to work so much and have different kind of lives within the industry. But yeah, it's funny because, like, again, video and trial, like I was on TV almost every day for 9 years. And I was very recognizable for a long time.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, I would never have really said I'm like famous. Like, it's not like in the US. Like, if you had that kind of exposure, it's like a full on. And I feel like that's a bit of a blessing. Like, I loved doing what I did, and I don't do stand up anymore, and I haven't for like 8 years.
Okay.
But I liked, I don't know where I was going with this, but I kind of, the novelty wears off of being recognized all the time. Like, it is like, at first, I think everyone thinks they want that, and that is kind of cool. And there's like little perks, and it's like, it is cool that someone wants your picture or things like that, or you're at a club and everyone, if you want to buy you a drink. But the novelty wears off when, like, I remember a cool thing for me early on, I don't know if you know Now Magazine in Toronto. It's like, it's like this weekly magazine that's just like, the cool, like, everyone, it's like your Bible if you're like entertainment, books. It just was like a big free weekly, and I got the cover of it, which was like a really cool moment. Like, it's everywhere. And I remember like being on the subway one night in that week, and like there was a copy of it on the floor of the subway, and just some woman was like, just happened to be stepping on it. Like, she doesn't know. And I'm sitting across from her on the subway, and I'm just looking at it. It's like my cover, it's like this is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me at the time. And then she's just like sitting there. She doesn't care, and she's like, her foot. I'm like, excuse me, can you get off of my face?
Off my face, yeah.
But,
yeah, no kidding.
But
do you feel like, I feel like, especially for Canadians, because you kind of mentioned how, okay, well, if you're in the States and you had the same kind of exposure perhaps that you did in Canada, that you might, it might be a little bit more cuckoo bananas than maybe it was being in Canada. But do you feel like the opportunities still as Canadians in Canada, like we still don't have as many opportunities, especially in the entertainment industry? I think it's still kind of like that today. Maybe it's worse. I don't know. Do you think Canadians still have to go and travel to the States and go to, Los Angeles, or go, it's kind of like a given that you kind of almost have to do that unless. Yeah,
there is this thing of like, unfortunately, like, I think it still permeates a little bit of like, until you've made it in the US, you kind of are like, and even for me, like in stand up, like doing Conan was like such a big thing, because it's like, oh, Conan. It's like, and that is amazing, and it was kind of like a giant goal for me, and it's something I really wanted to do. But it was kind of like a couple, like even when Winnipeg, like when I was in Winnipeg, it wasn't until I went off and was doing stuff in Toronto and other places that then in Winnipeg I was getting invited to the comedy festivals there, and then same with Canada. It's like when you go to the US, if it's like they approve you, then you're more legitimate somehow.
Yeah.
And I feel like that still is, like, even me as a producer, like, I've been lucky to work in the US quite a bit on Big Brother US and a few other shows, and Paradise Hotel, which is a big show for Fox 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I know that the value of that has back here too. It's like, oh, like he's done those, and it's like, and it is very cool, and I'm happy done it. But I actually truly think the shows that I've done in Canada are even better and harder and cooler and all that. So I don't think of it, like, I've never been as in love with the idea of being in LA as some people. Like, I did spend some time there, and I do like it, but I've never felt like I needed to be there to be like kind of validated. You know what I mean? Like, I've never been like, because there are comics that I knew are like back in the day that I think they just wanted to be in LA. It's like, if you were in LA, you had made it. It's like, I'm in LA. I'm a comedian in LA. Yeah. It's like, what does that really mean though? It's like,
I think Trump fucked it up, to be honest. Trump fucked up the whole idea of like, that beautiful paradise of the US of A, like the best country in the world. So
true.
Perhaps
it's like scarier now. Like the friends that I have there now, it is like it's like, it's not as glamorous, I think, as it used to be.
I think that's true. Yeah, for sure. So like talking about the Canadian versions of the shows that you're working on currently, like Drag Race, and it's funny because I still think, do you feel like as the Canadian version, there's still like a bit there that you need to prove yourself in comparison to the American version? Do you know what I mean? Like, because it's just, there's still some of that, or I'm just projecting this. I don't know if that's true, but
I think so. I mean, it's like something that I think maybe it's like there is like an insecurity that we have as Canadians of like feeling like we need to do that, and maybe that's actually a good thing, because maybe it makes us try harder and fight harder and like do better things. Like, I don't think there's necessarily that, like, you know, Big Brother Canada or Drag Race Canada. Like, I don't think necessarily people are comparing them so much, or, you know, I don't feel like oh, it has to be better than the US or that it's a competition. Like, I don't really feel that. Like, to me, it's like always just like, you know, my competition is kind of like with myself or with the things that we've done in the past, or rather than like what the US specifically has done. But I think it's like a nice, it's all, of course, always nice to be in that comparison. Like, it's nice, like we definitely have less money in Canada. We have smaller budgets, smaller teams and things like that. So anytime you feel like you can do something that's kind of on par with stuff that the Americans are doing is great. Like, I think Big Brother Canada is something, you know, so proud of. I've been on since season 1, and there's a really amazing team there. And I feel like what was hard about starting Big Brother Canada was that, you know, when we started it, the Big Brother US was on season 13 or something. So like, it was so established and it was in its prime, and, you know, just like really firing on all cylinders. And then we come in and we're the new kids on the block, and it's like, how do you compete? And like, you know, season 1s are always hard. And, you know, I think it kind of forced us to just think about why we're doing it, which is like, okay, we want to just like, we're not trying to compare it to them. It's like, we want to do our own thing, and we do want to do something a little different. So I think, and early seasons, I look back now and I probably would cringe, because it's like, it is like, it's all, you know, season 1s are hard. But I think as time went on, we did some really cool stuff that, you know, really made the format our own. And I know there's a lot of people that think it's like one of the coolest versions, you know.
That's what Hero said just before you popped on.
Well, because that's what I was saying to Rachel as well. I think about the Amazing Race Canada, and I think about the adaptations of Canada from the States, and what shows have stayed on and what shows have come on and tried really hard, like Canadian Idol, So You Think You Can Dance Canada, Top Chef Canada, then it was off and it came back. Like, there's a lot of these kind of adaptations, and this is not a read, but you can see a difference in production and in terms of the final product. And not that it's better or worse, but you can see there's a difference. What I'm getting to a point though is that you can see in the Amazing Race Canada, as one example, it doesn't feel like you're watching a lower grade or a lower production. It feels like you're watching the show that you might have grown up watching prior, and then you see your country being represented, and you're like, damn, that's really fucking cool. Like, that's incredible to see that. And Drag Race is actually one example that I also would say too, you know. And what I'm curious about is, were you producing the first season of Drag Race Canada as well, like the first and the second?
No, I just did season 2.
Okay, got it. I was wondering, I wasn't sure. And so what I'm curious about is that, well, we love learning about like the process of something. We don't necessarily care about the little superficial details. Like, anyone can ask those things. But what I'm curious about is the production of the season that you produced. Did you notice any differences in terms of how the show operated or how the production operated, and also during the pandemic? Because I think the first season was filmed maybe at the beginning of COVID, or maybe just before.
No, I think it was before.
Okay.
It was filmed before,
So what differences do you notice, even if you didn't produce the first season? Can you speak to anything that you noticed might have been accomplishments or challenges or things that you might have had to really think about in a way of the pandemic, and how everyone in the production might have been kind of affected by that, if they were affected by that?
Yeah, I mean, filming in the pandemic is tricky, of course, because, you know, I think the biggest thing, of course, is like, you know, you want to keep everyone safe. So, you know, and I think there's like the government kind of set, you know, guidelines, and then we were kind of doing even more than that, because of course we want to just make everyone safe and feel comfortable and all that. So but you know, so there's all these things that are put in, and TV shows are already really hard to make. So then you also kind of to do it within a pandemic, and you can't be near people, and you're fully masked, and that makes it tough because it's like, I think TV, you go in and you make these shows, and it is like a family, and like you really need to kind of bond, and like you kind of go into war with these people in a way of like, you know, okay, we're gonna really because it's hard, it's like long and tough, but you know, the most fun as well. It is like summer camp filming TV shows, but doing it during a pandemic is like, it is tough because even the just kind of the connections that you would be making with your just fellow crew, it's like just that much tougher because of the precautions you're taking. So so yeah, that's like that was kind of that is a challenge of like, you're trying to like, you know, really be there for everyone else and be supportive, and you know, I think and we got through it, and I'm, you know, very happy that like, you know, we didn't have any incidents and things like that, but but the pandemic definitely is like, it definitely is making it tough. But I think at the same time, we're just so grateful that we're able to work. Like, I think, you know, I was on Big Brother when Big Brother got shut down during the pandemic. Like we were filming when it happened, and then the government shut the season down, you know, so we sent everyone home. So I think at that point too, there was like a period where like, you know, this is like literally the pandemic just hit, and was like, you know, February, March, when things got shut down, and you know, everything got shut down, of course, like sports, and you know, I think we all know. And there was a period where I was like, okay, so is TV just never going to come back? Am I going to like, should I just go to be a teacher? Like, what do I do now? You know? So I think we're just also happy to kind of be doing what we do, that, you know, kind of a small price to pay is like doing all the right things, you know?
Well, yeah, and you make a point though. I mean, I kind of thought about Big Brother, and not in relation to this discussion, but somewhere along the lines, I was thinking, man, like all my reality shows are being cut, and what am I gonna do? And I was thinking, you know, Big Brother would make so much sense, because, hey, stop. They're like my soap operas, man. So you look at these people in Big Brother, they're already in quarantine. You might as well just keep them there for, you know, 3 years and have it be an ongoing soap opera. It'd be the longest season ever.
Who wants to spend 3 years together though? Yeah.
Could you imagine that?
Talk about a human. That's like my husband and I. Like, come on, talk about a human experiment. We're all in an experiment right now. Like,
we have no idea what's happening.
Big Brother the last 2 years. Isolated from everyone.
So funny.
I mean,
production knows what's going on. Like, Big Brother's literally watching. You're hearing all the news. These people in the house are just going crazy. They have no idea what the hell is happening. Meanwhile, COVID's happening, but they are completely in la la land, and they're all safe because they haven't been exposed to it.
Well, you know, it's interesting because and they were, of course, like totally safe. Like they were cut off from people, and so they went in totally safe and all that. But it's interesting, in like some of the other countries, they still, like, I think Big Brother Italy was. Do you remember in the beginning, Italy kind of got hit like really hard?
Yeah,
like, very first. It was like
they did. Yeah.
Big Brother Italy was happening at that time as well, and I think the government deemed it as like a necessary service because it was actually providing entertainment for people. So it was kind of funny. So like, I think all the crew had these like badges. Like, I think it was like a stay at home and no one could leave their house, but the crew had these like passes that they could then go out to do the job and do the show, because it was actually keeping people sane having this show. Because I think what was magical about it was that it was happening at that, like, what's great about Big Brother is it's happening in real time, right? So you can kind of connect to it. So it's not like just throwing on Netflix and watching Will and Grace or something. It's like you're watching, you know. So I think there really was that escapism of being able to watch. And again, these people were in a house, and because they were totally safe, they could just be free and hug each other and do all these things and like live a normal life. So there was this kind of escapism of like being able to just like, oh my God, even though I'm stuck in my house, I can watch other people having a life. So it's interesting. Like, we didn't get to do that here, but you know, so that kind of was happening in some places.
I didn't know that. That's interesting. Okay, I have to take it back a little bit because I really want to know. I mean, you have this niche, it seems like, that you're in reality TV. How did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, really, it was. I mean, I literally where it came from is just like, that's just like what I love to watch. Like, I always loved. Like, to me, it's you know, people to me, I really think like do what you love, right? Like I grew up loving Survivor, Big Brother, and a lot of these shows.
Yeah.
And
same.
You know, like I fell into producing in the sense that I just started producing video on trial and kind of like loved it almost even more than doing the show. And then that just kind of led to other gigs. And then really the turning point was the company that did Big Brother Canada. When I heard, I'd happened to do some other work for them, like I'd written some Juno Award shows and some other award shows. And then when I heard that Big Brother Canada was coming to this company, I emailed. I was just like, I don't know. I have to be involved. I don't care. I will do anything. And, you know, I kind of reached out at the right time, and they were putting the crew together, and, you know, chatted with kind of the people, and they were like, they gave me this, you know, I started out as a challenge producer and then kind of worked my way up to an executive producer over the years. And so but it really was just like, I was like, I have to be a part of it, you know?
Yeah.
And those things, it's like, you know, I really think that it's always the people would ask for advice, and it really is as simple as like, know what you want and then just start going after it. Like one of my favorite examples is so season 5, or like, I think it was season 5 of Big Brother, you know, we have an audience every week that, you know, comes out to the tapings. And I a lot of times would go out and I'd talk to the crowd and just like fill time and answer questions like with Arissa, our host, and I remember there's this one guy in the crowd, and he just asked a question. He was like, you know, he's like, I love doing challenges. I would love to like work for you. And I was like, kind of laughed, and I was like, okay, yeah, sure, you know, whatever. And then after, like, I talked to him and I gave my email. It's like, and then it turns out he had some really relevant experience, and so I hired him for the next year on my team as like a production assistant. And then now he's running the department. Like I'm gone, and he's like has my old job kind of. And he literally was in the audience 5 years ago. So
that's,
you know,
amazing.
Yeah.
And it shows you that like, it's like, I feel like I'm a product of that as well, of just like, you know, you kind of ask for what you want. Not that everyone's going to give you what you want all the time, but I think you can't just expect people to come to you with it. And yeah, I mean, he happened to also just be this like super passionate, really, you know, smart person who just like took a position that was maybe below where he was, because he just wanted a foot in the door, and then just proved himself over and over. And then, you know, if you work really hard, and I think that'll get you everywhere, you know?
That's really inspiring. And then what we always talk about on this podcast too is intention. What's the intention behind it, right? So you could see that this person had a very genuine intention. It wasn't coming from a place of, I don't know, like being super narcissistic or ego driven, or so that's
TV. I would say like
cool.
You know, a third of it is very much like making sure people want to work with you again. Like that's a lot of it is like, if people have a good experience with you, they will hire you again, you know? Like that is like, it's like, oh, this person's very nice, so let's bring them back, you know? I mean, you have to be good at your job too, but I think you know, I think that's like a big part of it, is just, you know, being nice to people.
Absolutely. Your presentation is one thing, as well as your talent and your production. I mean, like, whether if you're producing or not, but the production of your work and how you show up, and your work ethic, your determination, and your intelligence as well. Because if you have people that are really talented, but they're not the best to work with, then you kind of grate your teeth in some ways and kind of cringe and say, fine, they'll get the job done, but we don't really want to be around whoever that might be. So you need to have both. Yeah, you need that both for sure. And I like that you were speaking about kind of how do you get into that? Because myself personally, I'm kind of at a pivot in my career and stuff, and wanting to maybe get into that kind of stuff as well. Production, I'm not so sure about, but I definitely like the podcast has been, I was saying the reach of the podcast is a wonderful way to have that ability to meet people, to connect with people, to share stories, to tell stories, right? And so I thought about, what would it be like if I ended up being a TV show host for somewhere like a local news channel or a game show or a talk show? Like, what would that be like? You know, my resume doesn't reflect that experience, but you know, someone can have a lot of talent and skill and raw capability.
But you're doing the right thing of having, like, knowing this is something you can do, is starting a podcast. Like that is something, absolutely. And then you hone your skills this way. And like you said, you can bring on people that you can then learn from or make contacts. So it's like that. Absolutely. It's the perfect example of like doing what you have control over, and just like continuing to do it. Like when I was doing stand up, it was always, my goals were very much of like, okay, as long as I'm better in 6 months than I were today, and as long as in 6 months I'm doing a little, it's just things like that, because you can't control, all you can kind of control are those little things. And so as long as I would just say you're doing the right thing, and it's going to just then either open up other opportunities, or you will start to like realize what parts of this you like or don't like, and you'll just kind of start finding yourself into the positions that you're meant to be, I think,
Yeah, it's growth. It's all about is, I think, as long as you're moving forward. I mean, sometimes you move back a little bit, but as long as
sometimes you have to.
Sometimes you have to move back, but you know what I mean? Like it's there was something else we were putting out there the other day. I was like, Hero, have you always wanted to be made up as a drag queen? Because I have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that a rhetorical question, or do you want me to answer that question?
No, it's not. Well, I know the answer to it. So it's just, anyway, we're talking about manifestations now.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
funny.
I'll answer the question. I mean, I think it's a fun little side note. I mean, I definitely, though I am.
And coming up with drag queen names, and oh my God, we're all over that.
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, you being, of course, like gay, straight, whatever, but like being queer myself, being gay myself, and being very non-seen, which most people will understand that term. I didn't know really where I fit in. I knew I fit into myself, but where did that translate in terms of Vancouver's community? And if you spend time in Vancouver, that might be more relevant or maybe less relevant. Toronto is huge, even though it might still be Canada. So it's like, where the hell do I go as a teen or as a young adult? And now in my 30s, like, what the fuck am I doing? So, you find, shut up, Rachel. You find that ability.
Trevor, we know each other so bloody well. We can complete each other's thoughts.
Yeah,
I've seen that.
Yeah, like I know, and it's just, anyway.
So like, I don't have an interest in doing drag, but I do have an interest in that feeling that you get by being on stage, which I did with poetry, spoken word, all that stuff in like high school, as all teen angst kids do.
Yeah, it's like an outlet. You want an outlet,
Yeah. Well, and also like LTV being in Vancouver, or at least having a main base in Vancouver, I got a slice of that and I've said this before on the show, like I was a featured date on First Dates Canada in the first season, and they filmed
yeah.
So I got an idea of like, I've wanted to be on a reality show.
Oh my God, how was that? How did it go? Was there a second date Canada?
There was not a second. There was a second season, but there wasn't a second date for me. And I kind of told our date specialist, like, he left me heartbroken. And then, of course, it's in like the 2-line subtext after they tell you what happened after the date, And then following that month, I was on LTV for like a teen angst night with Sarah Bino. She had like a queer version of that, and it was at the Orpheum just down in Vancouver. So like I got an idea of what that snippet is kind of like. People are giving you direction. You're doing your own thing. You see lights in action. You see the whole.
Well, you know what? We have something in common then, because the very first TV thing I ever did was when I just moved to Toronto, and it was on LTV as well, and it was a gay dating show, and it was called Fairy Tales.
I've never heard of that.
But
really?
Oh my God,
that's cute.
That's cute, actually.
I went on a date. It was like to the CN Tower restaurant, and same kind of thing. But that's very funny. So see, there you go. That is apparently the end to entertainment in Canada.
Totally. I mean, the best part of that date, honestly, was at the very end of the show, and they do like these post-confessionals for those that watched the First Dates franchise. And so what they do is that they get you on your date, they say, great, okay, that's a wrap. No, they ambush you and say, no, you're coming with us. And it's like midnight at this point of our date, because we had a 10 o'clock filming in Yellowstone. They took us to the Rosedale Hotel, which is right there, and they throw us into this room, and then all the featured dates are there, and we have no idea what the fuck's going on. So then all of a sudden you see half of those dates going off, and then they call you in to answer how your date was. Then all of a sudden I'm sitting there, and then I'm like, fuck? My date comes in and sits beside my ass, even though the second chair doesn't make any sense to me. Now it makes sense. And that's where like, whatever. And we kissed on camera.
You're like you're blindsided.
Yeah. Because you're like, what if they hated the person? If you speak negative of the person and they catch you off guard, then you're like, oh, this is awkward.
That actually leads to a question for you, Trevor, because I feel like, because you were such a fan of reality TV as is Hero, and I'm not saying I'm not a fan. I'm very particular though. I don't like I don't like all reality. I got my few chosen ones that I really love. But from loving it to getting into it, have you been disenchanted? Were there moments where you're like, what the fuck? Like, really? This isn't reality. Like, what, or like just kind of your mind was blown a bit and then decided, no, like, I think we need to refine this or that, or how did you feel getting, going from a fan to
I think it's
behind the
kind of the
scenes?
opposite. Like, it's been like
good.
such a dream. Like, honestly, like, I can't believe that I get to make the shows that I love
Awesome.
watching, and it's, yeah, like, I've always kind of just like watched TV. That it's like been my pastime. Like, I was just like, so to get rewarded for it, like, really, like, I've gotten certain jobs because I just know it. So, like, even Big Brother Canada, like, part of why I got the job, I think, was because I was such a huge fan. Like, some of the other producers starting it, like, knew it and had done some amazing TV shows. They were super experienced, but they weren't as familiar with Big Brother. So like, they liked that I was a big fan. And so it's kind of amazing when that can kind of pay off. And then, yeah, like, to be able to help create some of these moments. And, it really is, like, I think, sometimes reality TV has this bad rap of, like, people think there's all this producer interference and all kinds of stuff. That's really not the case. Like, you can't, like, Big Brother especially, like, there, it's on the live feeds. Like, it's all there, unfiltered, 24 hours a day. Like, of course, you're only showing 1 hour or 40 minutes of every 4 days. Like, of course, it's an edited, like, you only get it's a snapshot. So, of course, context and things like that, of course, it's, like, not always exactly perfect, or, some things can be kind of misconstrued. But because you are trying to, like, condense it into a 40-minute snapshot every couple of days, you don't see every single thing that leads up to everything. That some fans might go like, well, they didn't show this. It's like, well, of course you can. It's an hour show.
Yes.
So, but it keeps you so honest, because you can't misrepresent something, because it's like people are literally watching it live, so they'll call you out on it.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of like the biggest misconception about reality. People think it's like, oh, and you're making these people villains and all kinds of stuff. It's like, you can't make them say anything they don't want to, and you're not.
No.
It's like, even like I got to do Big Brother UK, which was like a real dream. Like, that was like
wow.
They have I don't know if you've ever watched Big Brother UK, but their format is very different.
I was going to ask you about that type of stuff.
They do it every day. Like, it's on air every single day.
Holy
the public vote them out. It's very different, but it is, like, kind of super pure. Like, even like I would ask people questions in the diary room, and you can't even, like, you can't ask them anything that they haven't led you to. Like, you can't, like, it is such a pure, you can't, like, like, you can't interrupt them at all, or it's like just this, like, organic thing. So it's so it's actually been really fun. Like, to work on it has been really fun, because it's like, it's kind of even more magical than I ever thought it would be.
Well, I love to hear that. Just one really quick thing, sorry, but I'd love to hear that, because like I've said, we've had a number of guests from, like, Hell's Kitchen to Mary Murphy from just recently with So You Can Dance, and, like, just
what was her the train? What was the
hot tamale train?
Hot tamale train.
Oh, the hot tamale train. That's it.
Yeah. Anyway, that's a story.
Did she do that for you?
No, that's okay.
I asked her. She said you have to earn it. I
was gonna say, you have to watch the very end of the episode, because Hero did pull that, like, question at the very, very end. And a part of me was okay. We're totally off tangent, but part of me was almost like, oh God, don't ask it, because she probably gets asked that a million goddamn times.
You have to.
And right, exactly. So
she'd be mad if you didn't.
Yeah. So wherever the heck was I going? Oh, I was just gonna say that we've had all these people on that have been, like, in the forefront of these shows, but and they've all said exactly what you're saying, which is awesome. They're saying, how delighted and how, like, maybe relieved a little bit too, of how it is like, it actually is more real than they thought it would be, and their expectations or their prejudgments actually were changed, and they were uplifted actually by the fact that it's not really what the public maybe kind of makes it out to be necessarily. And so it's great to hear from your perspective, somebody who is much more behind the scenes.
Yeah, because they are, a lot of those shows are based on actually real people. Like Big Brother is like, these are people that kind of like are servers or work in retail. Like, these are the realest of people. They're literally by definition real people, and not actors and stuff. So you really couldn't produce them to be a certain way, even if you tried. Like, that's actually what's so fun. I mean, I truly think, like, why people love watching Big Brother, and we keep talking about Big Brother, but it is, again, this, like, great cross section of Canadians trapped in a place with no phone, TV, internet,
Yep.
that you just don't really get that anymore. And that's what you connect to, is the authenticity of it. Like, that's what you know, so for us, it's like, we're not trying to get in the way of that. It's actually, this is exactly what we're trying to capture. Like, you work, you do all this to get the authenticity, and then it's just, our job is just to kind of tell that story. Like, we're just trying to package it. That's all we're, that's all we're doing. It's like, we're giving them a framework to then be themselves, and then we're just kind of like packaging it for Canadians to see in what is a produced TV show,
No, that's very true. And
but there's not this, like, people think they're like, oh, we're behind the scenes and like, oh,
right. You're not doing that.
Here's the big cue card. Like, no, say that. Make sure you say this.
No,
oh my God.
No, exactly. Because as you're saying, though, what you put out is what can be edited or can be reinterpreted if you give it out. If it's not there, then they can't just make it up. They can splice stuff from different scenes if they're in the same outfit, which I see in confessionals and shows. They keep the same attire to give kind of like fast forwards or throwbacks or whatever, but they're still saying the content. Like, you can't just make shit up or put an ad lib in there, because that's obviously going to look disingenuous, right? So when you're talking about, again, because you mentioned Big Brother in the UK, and I'm not sure if it's as simple as they have more budget or they have more airtime or whatever, but like, when you watch even Survivor Australia or Australian Survivor, they do, three episodes in a row, like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and it might still be 8 or 9 weeks or whatever, but like, they show that much more content. But is it just the fact that they're just showing more content and they have more bandwidth or leeway to show that?
Yeah, I think it's just like in those, I just feel like, I know in the UK, it's just how all their TV is. Like, they love to do things like that, where it's just on every night, and people consume it like it's like their soap opera. Like, I think here it's just like, people wouldn't watch. It's just like, we're not used to that. Same with Australia. Like, I love Survivor Australia, and their episodes are an hour and a half. And I think they're on every day, or there's like, or 3 times a week, or it's times a week. It's kind of insane. It's like super crazy. But that's just how they digest it. Like, there's another show I like from Australia, The Block, and there's like 78 episodes in a season, and you're like, how is that possible? But it's just, maybe not that many, but it's just like, that's just what it is. So here, I feel like even Big Brother is kind of like, to me, I think people were really curious, like, when Love Island came onto the US, because Love Island, huge in the UK, and it's on every night, 6 nights a week. Same thing. People are obsessed with it. And that's part of the charm, is like, it's on every night. So you really just like, it's a soap opera.
Yeah.
And then when it was coming to the US, I think, I wasn't involved at all in it, but I was curious of like, are they going to do it 5 nights a week or 6 nights a week? And will that translate? And they did. But then I think season 1, it was kind of tough for them. And I think it's taken a couple of years now to really get people into that type of viewing.
Don't you think, though, that because well, it's kind of a no-brainer answer, I think, but because of the pandemic, I mean, people are watching way more.
Oh, yeah,
and they're just like needing and craving content constantly. And with that being said, do you think there'll be any changes to anything in the productions that you do?
Well, I think there's like, I think there's definitely like, it seems like there's like such a desire for way more content, which is great, because there are all these other streaming, and every like network wants a streaming, like CBS has Paramount Plus, and they all have their own, so they all then need content, and like, there's only so many Friends and Survivor, or Friends and Seinfeld that you can put on there. So I do think there is this seemingly, there's like just a need for as much content as possible, which is great. So I feel like it's a good time for TV. I think people thought like a couple years ago, it was like TV was dead, and everyone's cutting their cables and all that. I don't think that's. I think it's people, and maybe the pandemic was a really good thing for that. Like, I think people were watching a lot more. So I think it's kind of been good for people. I mean, I know right now there's just like so many shows in production, which is great. Yeah. I don't know if it'll change the way, like, I don't think necessarily there'll be more episodes per week or anything like that.
That's what I was
thinking.
I
don't think so. I think, I know the big difference from a couple years ago is the network or Netflix kind of like dumping full seasons on all at once. So you've got that binging thing, but I feel like that's kind of gone away. And I think it's cool to binge it all, but I think what's kind of frustrating for if you work a year on a show and then people watch it in one night and then they're like, well, I want more. It's like, I worked all year on that show.
I know.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of gone back to now more, I think they like the appointment viewing of like every Thursday, because then you get people talking about it. Like if you're binging it, you're only, and if everyone binges it, that's cool that everyone watched it, but you're only getting people talking about it for one day.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Which is not, it's like, okay, we're all talking about it for a weekend, or like, or I've binged it in a weekend, but you haven't watched it. It's like, we can't talk about it. So I think it's actually, it's actually gone back to what was classic TV, which was appointment TV viewing of like every Thursday comes out, because now every Thursday we're getting together to talk about it,
Yeah.
So that was like
that kind of water cooler type thing,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm more into that was like me with like Yellowstone. God, I love Yellowstone. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yellowstone,
Yellowstone,
and then Yellow Jacket. Is that?
Oh yeah, they're very different.
Okay, yeah. I've heard both.
Oh, they're very different. Okay, no, Yellowstone is like cowboy Kevin Costner.
Oh, okay.
On a ranch in Montana and like a whole bunch of shit. But what's cool, okay, wow, totally kind of off topic, but and then Yellow Jackets, just really quickly, is like the female version of oh my god, of Lord of the Flies. Very different.
Okay. Yeah.
Yellow Jackets is amazing though. I binged that too. That was really good. So, and how are you doing, Trevor, right now? Just with resurgence of and the continuation of we shall not actually say the word of the C word. And how's everything going in Toronto? Like, just what are you doing now? I guess we'll kind of bring it to the actual present moment.
Yeah, I'm like so busy working that which again I'm just like so happy for, and kind of I think I think it's definitely like COVID fatigue. I think we're all kind of like just like wanting to, I've got my booster and all my shots, and like I've been good for so long, and I think it's like I think we all deserve to be on the other side of it. So I think we're all hoping that we're kind of near the end there. But
how is it in Toronto? Because just being from, are you guys still in a bit of a lockdown stage?
I don't know. Like right now we're I think it's kind of like they're in this like, I feel like we're always in some stage of kind of reopening or closing. It's like hard, like there's like codes, and I try to like tune out a little of the like tote boardness. Like I think it's like there's only so much I can handle from the news of like
me too,
numbers thrown at me every single day. It's like I don't need to know, like I live my life pretty small, and I'm doing the things that I need to, and I'm fine, and I'm like I don't need to be, and there's like it's like, and you hear every single country stat. I'm like, okay, I don't, listen, I hope people in New Zealand are fine, but I don't need to hear about them every day, Like,
fair.
Like, I feel like it's not helping people's mental health,
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And one thing I'm also curious to know about is that, are you still producing Canada's Drag Race? Is that when you're saying you're working full time and stuff, are you working on several projects at the moment?
No, I'm on Drag Race. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Amazing. And obviously like that's, zip and under the table and stuff, but that's great that it's but I'm happy to know that it is in production, that seeing we're looking for season 3, that there are people that are out there, because it's great to see our country represented in a way that is very poignant and to give that equal representation, and clearly even with, UK versus the world, seeing 2 queens from our country being represented is nice for our population to have that diversity, that inclusivity. So I think it's great that you're able to be. Yeah,
it's a great opportunity, I think, to show kind of these Canadian stories on a global platform. I think that's really cool,
Yeah, absolutely. Because this is the first time they've done a world, like getting the the queens together, correct? In that capacity.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's like the first really like big international kind of global summit of drag.
I know.
It is for sure. And it's interesting that they chose not 9 individuals, but usually when they have these experimental things, they usually do like a 6-part series and then usually expand it based on its success or its demand. I don't know if it was COVID, but it's great that it's happening. Yeah. That's what matters the most. So
long time coming. Jimbo, represent Canada.
Yes, absolutely. And Lemon, you were robbed. Just to note, you were robbed. but Jimbo, you're still there. We also love to just kind of chat at the end of our discussion, just if there's anything else that you'd like to share or add, anything you want to leave for your fans or your listeners, anything that you want to share before we kind of wrap everything up?
No, I don't know. I think there's, are you trying to get me to do the train? What's that? Is that what is that your roundabout way?
No, you're already on that train. You're already on that train, my friend. You are more than okay. So that's totally
so
good.
Funny. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. No, it's all, you know what, like I'm just so thankful to have you on the show and to talk to somebody once again, just have a different perspective of someone who really is so immersed with the production of these shows. It's just, it's been great. So thank you very much for giving us your time.
No, thank you for having me. No, it's been fun.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Okay,
I'm going to try and find your first date episode.
Please do. It's season 1, episode 8, I believe. Alex and the title is Alex and Megan, because they're only show the first date that they feature, and that's the name of the episode.
Oh, okay. I
think it's in circulation on Slice, but my mom lost it on her PVR, and I'm so devastated because I cannot find it for the life of me.
So
it's
funny.
not viewable online, but it is somewhere out there.
Really?
So you let me know if you find it.
Do they ever?
I'll go into the vault.
Yes.
Do they ever,
yes.
At the end of a production, this is kind of a random question. Do they ever like not? I guess these days they don't give you like a copy of your, your episode or like,
I think you just kind of get to watch it.
Yeah, I never got anything.
I'm just curious because I remember the only time I was really on television, I was dancing when I was a kid, and I was like 7, and I was on MacGyver. I was on an episode of MacGyver.
Oh.
No way.
Yeah, and it was a Christmas episode, and I just recall
that's cool
because my dad was an actor, and he was on like X-Files and Addams Family, and like he was just, I shouldn't say just, but like he was character actor type guy, and so he kind of got me into that. But anyway, I have the VHS. That's why I was asking if they of my episode.
Yeah.
No, I was just
that's so cool.
Just 7 minutes in heaven. That's it. That's all.
Oh Lord.
I did do I was not an actor, I'm not really an actor, but I did do a couple episodes of a TV show called The Latest Buzz. I don't know if you know that show. It's like
sounds familiar.
It's like a Degrassi knockoff.
Oh, okay.
And I was just going through my storage locker, and I do have a DVD copy of it. And
Great.
you know what's really funny is I was on 2 different episodes on different seasons. It's like very bit parts. Like I had like 4 lines each time.
Yeah.
And I was really just playing myself. But I was really playing myself, but there are 2 totally different characters that I just played exactly the same. It was like, I was like a cell phone rep or something, and then like a flight attendant or something, but I was like literally just playing myself. And but I do have that on a DVD, so I don't have anything that plays DVDs anymore.
I know, right? Exactly.
Yeah. Oh my God, can you imagine though? I can imagine you as a flight attendant just feel like so over, just like, all right, next, just get going, get out.
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Anyhow, like I said, it's been awesome talking to you, and stay in touch. We look forward to obviously seeing the next season of Drag Race, and super excited to see all the things.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being willing to come on. I know I was the one that reached out, but I really just cold message people that I think that might actually see a message and hope for the best, and it's worked out so far. And
yeah, you should keep doing it.
I shall. Thanks for the inspiration and the words of wisdom.
Well,
so we'll chat with you later.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Trevor. Take care.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Juicy.